Unfortunately, I caught this case near the end. Now, that said, it's still a really, really long hearing. Apparently, I'm on the final day of a couple of days and a half long hearing for the termination of parental rights for a mother and a couple of fathers. Well, I'm a little sad that I don't have the first couple of installments of this to share with you. This is still definitely worth sharing. You get the whole picture, you get a very, very good idea from the testimony that you will hear here, will hear here, you will hear about what's been going on. And all I gotta say is watch the mom because it is clear that she should not have any children ever in her care. This particular court has their live stream set so that you can't back up or pause or any of that stuff that I tend to rely on. So I just had to jump right in. I was able to catch all of the remaining from where I got on today. I had to utilize multiple devices to make that happen, but I did. So I hope you enjoy. It's not the full picture, but you get it by the end, I promise. There's three kids involved here, and they all sound like they've been through a lot. Mom gives zero F's at all, and I'm just flabbergasted. There's a foster parent fighting for two of the kids, a grandma trying for both, and another grandmother of an alleged father that has a petition, and we don't see any of that part today, unfortunately, but it's not really relevant in the big scheme of things. Just buckle up. That's really that's my best advice right now. Buckle up because you're not going to believe this. You just won't.
Give you any reason to any documentation as to why she would not agree with those diagnoses?
No, she did not provide any documentation.
Did she ever express whether or not she believed that her mother had the ability to meet Kamari's needs?
That didn't come up.
But she was aware that in order for her mother to take possession of any of the children, she would need to move. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did she express any hesitation in that?
Yes.
And what was her hesitation?
She lacked the financial resources to live independently.
And did she express to you having anywhere else that she could go?
She reported she could stay a night or two with other family members, but nothing longer than that.
Did you have the opportunity to discuss with her ways that she could rectify that?
For financial stability,
Yes.
we would discuss her job searches, her current, if she had a job, and I think that was the hardest part for her was job and financial stability.
And during the course of the time that she was with you, was she ever employed?
Yes.
Based on the information that you were provided, how long would she maintain an employment position?
I don't think that she was able to maintain longer than a month.
And were you able to discuss with her the reasons that she was unable to maintain employment for longer than a month?
Yes.
And was she receptive to the problem-solving skills that you discussed with her?
Yes.
Did she employ any of those skills?
I can't report what happened on job sites. I can report what she told me.
Did she give you any indication that she had followed through with any of your support advice?
Yes.
And when was your last communication with Ms. White?
Last Thursday, the 17th. I mean, the 11th.
And if this case were not coming to an end, would you be successfully discharging Ms. White or unsuccessfully discharging Ms. White?
Unsuccessfully.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Crouch Bartlett.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Baker, you've been working with Ms. White for a very long time. Is that fair to say?
About 10 months.
Well, in the course of a CPS case, it's rather a long time for individual therapy. Is that fair to say?
I would say it's about average.
Well, when did you first start working with her?
February of 2022.
Okay. And has she been mostly consistent in seeing you every week?
Mostly consistent.
Okay. And is that important? Do you think that that's a good sign that she is making some attempt to change her life?
Yes.
And would you agree that Ms. White is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder?
Yes.
And based on the history of the extreme domestic violence between her and Mr. Byron Williams, the father of the two youngest children, is her PTSD activated or is it enhanced when Mr. Williams attempts to make contact with her or she has interactions with him?
I would agree.
And are you aware that Mr. Williams has stalked her and threatened her life on multiple occasions?
Yes.
And does Ms. White express to you that she feels safe in her mother's home?
I would assume yes.
Is it very typical for victims of extreme domestic violence to take a very long period of time before they can finally remove themselves permanently from their abuser?
Yes.
Do you think that it's possible if Ms. White were to continue meeting with you on a regular basis and making progress in terms of financial stability in her own life, that she could eventually get to a point where she could be successfully discharged?
I would hope
Objection
so.
calls for speculation, facts not in evidence.
Your Honor, she's an expert witness.
Hang on. I'm going to overrule the objection. I mean, this is your opinion as her therapist, Ms. Baker.
Yes, Ms. Baker, could you answer the question, or do you need me to repeat it for you?
I would hope so.
So there is hope for Ms. White, and if she continues to work on herself and achieve some kind of financial stability, which appears to be a significant issue for her. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, Ms. White is 25 years old. Is that right? So she's very young. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Hagerty.
No questions, Judge.
Mr. McGivern,
No questions.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes. Hi, Ms. Baker. I'm Sarah Anderson. I represent Althea Trevor, who is the foster parent of two of the children in this case, Camilla and Deshawn. What were the reasons that Ms. White gave you for losing those jobs?
One time I believe she fell asleep. Another time they downsized staff. And another time she missed, she was unable to come because she missed the bus.
So you talked a little bit about her authoritarian parenting style. Is that a healthy type of parenting style?
No.
And did it sound like she got that kind of parenting style from her mother?
Yes.
Would you recommend that Ms. White and her mother be in a position to raise 3 children, including one with special needs?
You know, she can't
That is
answer
out of
that
my scope.
question. I mean, come on. She's never going to answer that. And I wouldn't let her if she wanted to, because that is an ethical violation for a therapist to answer a question like that.
Did Ms. White herself, when she talked about hitting Kamari, did she ever admit to you that maybe that was not an appropriate way to discipline a child?
No.
Do you think she understood that after your conversation with her?
We agreed to disagree.
Right. Pass the witness.
Thank you. Ms. Wheeler,
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
we can.
Okay. Can you, Ms. Baker, please elaborate on the time that I allegedly was physical with Deja at school?
I can only repeat what was told to me by Miss White. And she said that she had been in trouble, and so her mother had whooped her ass, if I can quote her directly, in front of the school.
Okay. I'll go back on that one because that's not what happened. Were you aware that she was previously diagnosed as having oppositional defiant disorder as a child?
No.
No further questions.
Thank you. Ms. Lozito?
During your time with Ms. White recently, have you received any indication that Mr. Williams is completely out of her life?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Carter?
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions for this witness and ask that she be released.
Well, Ms. Crouch Bartlett gets to see if she has any first.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Great. Mr. Hagerty, Mr. McGivern, Ms. Anderson? Nothing. All right. Ms. Baker, as always, I appreciate your testimony very much. Thank you for spending some time here today with us. Free to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge Correa Gamble.
All right.
Let me get Miss Wheeler back. Sorry, we were just a smidge early. All right. 459th District Court is back in session. The Honorable Judge Maya Guerra-Gamble presiding.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Ms. Carter, do you have any more witnesses?
Your Honor, I'd like to call Ms. Trinice Wheeler. And how are you related to the children in this case?
I'm their maternal grandmother.
In the beginning of this case, actually, I guess this case started with Camilla. Let's strike that. When it became clear that Miss Burdett was not going to be able to continue to care for Kamari prior to her surrendering Kamari to the department, why didn't you take possession of Kamari at that time?
I assumed that Deja would take possession.
And when it became clear that Deja would not take possession, why didn't you step forward to take Kamari?
I wasn't aware that I could actually intervene.
Prior to CPS getting involved, it would have been a family member, as a family matter. Is that correct?
Yes.
And are you involved in your family matters?
Depends on if it has anything to do with me or not.
Does your grandson have anything to do with you?
Yes, he does.
So why then did you not take possession of your grandchild so that he did not have to be in the care of the department?
It never really crossed my mind. Like I said, I was hoping that they would be able to resolve this between the two of them. Once Camilla and Deshaun came into it, then I became aware that I had some rights as a parent, that I could actually say something, do something, and be involved. And that's when I actually went down and filed for the paperwork.
And you filed that paperwork in June of 2022, is that correct?
Correct.
And Camilla was in care, came into care in 2020, is that correct?
I believe so.
And Kamari was in Miss Burdett's care when Camilla was placed in CPS custody, is that correct?
Correct.
So you were aware that CPS could become involved and take possession of your grandchildren because they had already done that, is that correct?
Yes.
And so when Kamari was in danger of losing his placement with your mother, how did you not know that CPS could become involved and take him as well?
I never said I didn't know.
But you didn't come forward to try to prevent Kamari from being placed in CPS custody.
Because at the time, the legalities were between my mother and Deja. Again, I did not know that I could step in at that point and do something about it. I was hoping that they'd be able to resolve it themselves. Since they weren't able to resolve it themselves, I then became included.
And Deshaun came into care in 2021 after he was born, is that correct?
Yes.
And he came into care because Deja tested positive and the child tested positive at birth for illegal substances. Is that correct?
I believe so.
And so you did not become legally involved until June of 2022. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why did it take you from the time that Deshaun was born until June of 2022 to become involved in these cases?
At that point, I could definitely see that that was not going to be resolved the way I hoped that it was going to be resolved. And I found out that I was able, excuse me, I found out also that I was able to, that I had a legal hand in this.
And you participated in a home study, is that correct?
Yes.
And when you were participating in that home study, what was your understanding of the purpose of that home study?
At that time, that Kamari would possibly be placed with me.
And when that home study failed, what actions did you take?
Well, I did wait about probably a week or two, and since I never heard back about the study and what the results were, I finally got a hold to Andrea and was told that the reason that I wasn't going to be able to, or the reason that it wasn't approved was for the same reasons that were mentioned yesterday.
And so the department did go over the reasons the home study failed with you.
Yes, after I called them.
And did you take any steps to remediate the issues that had been described to you?
Well, the gun issue that was described to me was that I supposedly gave my mother a key to my gun box. My gun box does not have a key. It's a combination lock. She said that it was concerning the chemicals and the way that they were stored. So I have the safety pack to put on the cabinets for the lock and all the other safety things. No one ever said anything to me about sheet metal being a problem. And it's stored all the way in the back of the backyard. And if the children are outside playing, I would definitely be out there watching them. But again, nobody said anything to me about that. And I honestly don't remember what the other reasons were.
And did you ever ask to receive a copy of the home study?
No. I didn't know I could get a copy of it. I'm not familiar with the legalities and that I'm able to ask for things.
Objection, non-responsive.
Overruled. I'm interested in hearing why she didn't do that. She didn't know she could.
Again, I didn't know that I had the rights to do those things. I'm not familiar with legalities, how things work, how CPS works. I don't know any of this stuff. None of this stuff was brought up to me. And so if I don't know about it, then I don't know to ask about it.
And but you did know about the home study.
Yes.
And you did know to ask questions about the home study.
I asked what the results were from the home study because I never heard back from anybody to tell me yay or nay.
And why didn't you ask for a copy of the home study?
Again, I didn't know I could ask for a copy of the home study.
And when the reasons for the home study failing were discussed with you, did you seek any assistance in remediating the concerns that were communicated to you?
I just stated, yes, I did.
And there was a kinship safety evaluation conducted, is that correct?
Who would that have been by?
After the home study was reviewed with you and new questions were a new interview was conducted, is that correct?
Two ladies came by, they sat in the living room, they asked me questions and they left.
And part of the concerns of the home study was that Ms. White was living in your home, is that correct?
That was the main one, yes.
You know, Miss Lily, your sound is cutting in and out again.
My sound is?
Yeah, now it's good. I don't know why. Sometimes it works and sometimes
I had
it
to
doesn't.
restart my computer. It was doing some funky stuff, so I'm not quite sure what's going on.
Okay, well, now I can hear you again, so.
Okay.
Oh, but my court reporter did not hear the last answer. So I guess the question was, part of the concern of the home study was that Miss White was living in your home. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what steps did you take to alleviate that concern?
I got a hold to the small number of family members that I have. My mother obviously has already said she cannot stay with her long term, but doesn't have a problem with a couple of nights. I spoke to my grandfather, who is really not in the best of places to have someone living with him. I don't really have any real friends that I let in on my business in this kind of business. So I really haven't had anyone else to ask for. We've checked with shelters. I was previously in Safe Place myself, so I know how that works. It takes forever to get anything or get any kind of assistance and get yourself out of a home into that home. And other than that, I don't have any other resources available.
Did you at any time tell Miss White that she needed to vacate the premises and finding a new home would be her responsibility?
No, I never kicked my child out the house. No, because at the time I was telling CPS, I don't understand why I need to move her out of the house if I don't know that I'm actually going to get Kamari.
And after you intervened in June of 2022, and a plan was discussed with you to begin a transition for Kamari, predicated on Miss White being out of your home. Why did you not then insist that she leave?
Around what time was that?
In the summer of 2022, early fall, the testimony has been that there were discussions regarding transitioning Kamari to your home predicated on Miss White not being a resident in your home. Why did you not then ask her to leave?
Because in June of 2022, we had multiple days of over 100 degrees. And if she doesn't have anywhere to go, why would I put her out into 100-degree weather when Kamari is actually more than likely safe where he is? So if I take her out of the home and just throw her outside in 100+ degree weather, and this is going on and on and on for days, I understand she's an adult, but I can't see kicking somebody out in that kind of weather.
But did you or did you not inform the department that you could remove her from the home at a moment's notice?
Yes, I did. And I still mean that. But
and
again,
yet you have taken no actions to actually make that happen.
She doesn't have anywhere to go. Would you just want me to kick her out on the streets? Yes, I can. Yeah, I can. But that's what you want. That's what you're telling me. I need to kick my child out on the streets and able to get my grandchildren. That's what you're saying, correct?
I'm asking you if you understood what the conditions were for Kamari to be placed in your home.
Yes, yes.
And you did not follow through with creating an environment based on those conditions.
No, I didn't kick her out the house in the middle of 100 and some degree weather. No, I didn't.
And the kinship safety evaluation was actually conducted by Miss Mahogany's. Do you recall that?
Okay, then yes. That's why I was asking which one it was, who it was.
And you had the ability to communicate with Miss Mahogany's, is that correct?
At that time, yes.
And you were able to text with her?
Yes, but those are not always answered.
And did the department ever give you information on who you might be able to contact in order to become a licensed foster care home?
No.
You're sure that you never received a text message from Ms. Mahogany's regarding whether or not you could become licensed as a foster home?
We talked about me becoming adoption and the licensing and whether they would still get the benefits. I don't remember receiving anything from her about the adoption. I do remember receiving things from her for the psych evals that I had to go through and all the other stuff that I was supposed to do. There was no email. I don't, like I said, I don't remember.
And Ms. Wheeler, can you see my
Mhm.
screen?
Yes, I can.
And can you see what has been marked as petitioner's exhibit 62?
Yes.
And do you recall having text communication with Ms. Mahogany's?
Yes.
And do you recall this text exchange with her?
No, I don't.
So you never asked for information regarding adoption?
Ma'am, you asked me if I recalled, and I'm telling you, no, I didn't remember. Do I see the information in front of me? Yes, ma'am, I do. Did I remember about that? Can you go back up to the date? And it doesn't say what year that was. But like I said, I don't recall it. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. I just said I didn't recall.
So do you now recall asking for information regarding adoption?
Now that I see the information, yes.
And the response from Ms. Mahogany's was asking you about licensing, is that correct?
Yes.
And your response was the affirmative?
Yes.
And then she responded with the name of agencies that you could contact, is that correct?
As I see, yes.
And you acknowledged receipt of that information. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move to admit petitioner's exhibit 52.
Any objections? Petitioner 62 is admitted.
So when you ask questions, the department responds to you, is that correct?
Not all the time, but yes, sometimes.
And the times in which you did not get a response immediately, do you recall whether or not that was during business hours?
No, it was not during business hours. However, she would have been responsible either way to get some kind, at least let me know what the lady is driving, what her phone number is, some kind of communication, because I had no idea and I know this is kind of off the subject, but I had no idea. So in that case, she did not answer me. No, it was not during business hours, but I still needed the information and I didn't get it.
And you work for the state, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you respond to business communication during non-business hours?
Yes.
Is that by choice or is that an obligation of your job?
It's mandated.
And do you understand that not every state position is mandated to respond during non-working hours?
I don't have any idea on CPS's hours of operation. I don't know. I mean, I know they take their laptops home and they work from home, or at least they used to. So I don't know exactly what, their hours are or what they have to do. I only stick with the DHS, HHS, and I only know what we do. But I also would like to say that my assumption is if you're dealing with children and
objection, non-responsive.
You just have to wait. You'll have a chance to make a testimonial statement.
Ms. Wheeler, what is your plan to have Kamari in your home?
My plan is to try and get moved. Again, I don't want to move. I'm trying to lessen the amount of times that he's being moved because I know that this is going to affect him. So I'm trying to, I'm in the middle of searching for a 5-bedroom home via wherever I can get it because the market is crazy now. He'll have his own space. When he's having a bad time, we can go off to his space. If he wants to be by himself for a little while, give him that time. We go and discuss whatever it is that we need to discuss so that we can act in a better manner when it comes to the behavior.
So as you sit here today, do you have a pending lease or contract to purchase this 5-bedroom home?
No, I just started looking because I won't have the money to move until income tax.
And so as you sit here today, you do not have a clear plan to obtain this new housing.
Objection, that's argumentative.
Sustained.
The plan that I have
Oh, no,
right now.
you don't have to answer that.
Okay.
So what is your plan for getting a new home?
Right now, I'm doing home searches on har.com. I have a list. I'm getting ready to send out questions to make sure that I'm not necessarily spending my money on application fees if they're not going to accept my background, which was I had previous rental issues, but I've been in this place for about 6 years now. So I'm assuming that they won't matter, but I do have questions that I need to ask them before I start putting money into it and wasting my money.
So did you just indicate that you have a criminal background?
No.
What did you were breaking up, so I wasn't certain I heard what you said was the issue.
Rental background.
Thank you. I did not hear you.
That's fine. That's fine.
Very garbled.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this.
What is that rental issue that you referred to?
I had an eviction.
And when you move, will your daughter be moving with you?
No.
And how is it that you'll be able to kick her out at that point and you have not been able to remove her from your home prior to that?
Because she knows that's if she doesn't find anything by that time, then I can't help her.
And as you sit here today, do you have a date certain for when you intend to move?
My dates are I usually get my income tax in the middle of February, so it'd be between then and probably the first week or two of March.
So the answer is no, you do not have a date certain for when you will be relocating.
I can't have a date certain if I don't have a place to be certain about. So no.
And you signed the MSA as it relates to your daughter, is that correct?
I did.
And did you sign that knowing that the parties were agreeing that it was in fact in all of your grandchildren's best interest that your daughter's parental rights be terminated?
I did.
And so do you believe that it is in your grandchildren's best interest that Ms. White's parental rights be terminated?
Oh, and the fact that she hasn't necessarily gotten as much help as she needs, then I mean, there's not much else she can do. She was being harassed, she was being stalked. There was a lot of things that were taking place that I'm not sure everybody is aware of.
Objection, non-responsive. Do you believe, based on your signature on the MSA, that it is in your grandchildren's best interest that her parental rights, that your daughter's parental rights be terminated at this time?
No. But in order for me to have a chance at having my grandchildren, yes.
And do you believe that it is in Camilla and Deshawn's best interest that Mr. Byron Williams' rights be terminated?
Yes.
Do you believe that there has been any substantive change in his behavior during the pendency of this case?
He's gone from them arguing and cursing each other
Wait,
out.
I can't hear you. It's not
Can you hear me now?
working.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so it has gone from the arguments on the phone to nothing. Like they don't communicate at all. So I honestly don't know anything. I haven't seen him in I don't know how long. So I don't know what his situation is.
And Ms. Wheeler, what is different now with your proposed move and your daughter is not moving with you than any other point in time during this case where your daughter was staying with you?
Well, minus the time that she was incarcerated, I have been trying to get her jobs. I've sent information to her about jobs. I've allowed her to use my phone when hers wasn't working so that she can make these contacts with jobs. I just wanted her to get a job so that she could at least get a room and get out the house, but that hasn't been able to happen for multiple reasons.
And I don't believe you answered my question. What is different now with your pending move that you would be able to evict her from your home and not have her move with you than previously in this case when you were informed that she needed to be out of your home for the child to be placed with you?
As stated before, that is her deadline.
You're garbled.
No, I'm sorry, what?
As stated before, that when I move, that's her deadline. There's nothing else after that. I've done all that I can do personally to help her. And if she doesn't have it by that time, there's nothing else that I can do for her. That is her deadline.
Your Honor, I'll pass this witness at this time.
All right, thank you. Ms. Crouch Bartlett?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Wheeler, are you aware that with the eviction process, if Ms. White refused to leave, that you would have to go through the courts to actually have her forcefully removed from your home?
Yes.
Okay. And is that one reason why it would be easier for you to say, look, you have a deadline because I'm moving into a new home and you're not coming with me, as opposed to removing her from the residence where she's been staying for a long time?
Right. Correct. Yes.
Now, going back a little bit to the home study, at what time did the department specifically say to you, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z in order for your home study to pass? And this is why it didn't pass, and this is what you need to do, and I want to work with you on that. At what time did that ever happen?
It never happened.
Okay. And with regard to the drop-off of Kamari after he spent the night with you a few weeks ago, it was your testimony previously that Miss Andrea Magallanes was not responding to your texts and phone calls about the drop-off and the exchange and all of that?
Correct.
And was that concerning to you?
Yes, I feel like if you're supposed to be responsible for the child, then you should be available to answer at least the question, or should have previously provided the information, knowing that you weren't going to answer on a weekend.
And when you did drop or exchange Kamari with the former foster placement, did you interact with the former placement and exchange phone numbers so that you could communicate directly with her?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And just briefly, what did you do with Kamari during the visit?
Oh, we played. He told me that I wasn't allowed to go to the store with him until the next morning. But we went home. Well, he had control of the TV. So we watched what he wanted to watch, which we really didn't because we were busy playing and crashing cars and trucks and playing repair service and all this other stuff. So the most time that he was here, we were playing.
Okay. And would you say overall that his behavior was good?
Yes, we only had one small incident.
And what was that incident and how did you handle it?
He had the remote and he was kind of throwing it around. So I asked him to bring it to me. He brought it to me and I told him that he couldn't have it anymore right now. We were just going to watch what's on TV and that was going to be it. I sat the remote control down on the table and he decides to come over here and he gets a little sassy and he takes the remote. So I went back over to him and I said, may I have the remote, please? He said no. So I took the remote out of his hand and explain to him that when Gigi says that right now we're not going to touch the remote, that means right now we're not going to touch the remote. And in a couple of more minutes, when Kamari decides that he wants to behave correctly, he can have the remote back. And that's exactly what happened.
And so was the situation resolved pretty easily in that moment?
He got a little huffy puffy with me and, decided he didn't want to play for, a couple of minutes. And then he came back, Gigi, I love you. I love you too. It was like nothing ever happened.
And do you express a lot of affection with Kamari when you see him?
Yes, and that's how I got sick one time, because he was sniffling and kissed me on my cheek, and that's what grandmas do. We get kisses, and I got sick from him, but that was okay.
And in dealing with, in particular, this situation with the remote control, the TBRI training that you underwent with his former therapist, the trauma-based relational intervention, how helpful was that training that you did have with his former therapist?
Yes, ma'am. That was extremely helpful. This is two different generations of children. So how I handle my children is not how I handle my grandchildren. And especially with the TBR training, it helped me understand, maybe give them a couple of more options instead of just saying no. Because with my kids, when I said no, that was it. There was no other discussion after that. So with this helps me understand, give him options, because as a child, I didn't like it because I didn't have options. And I was like, you know what, that makes sense. So it's helped me give him options. I know that I need to let him know that things are changing ahead of time before that they change, so that he can adapt himself to what's going on. And I also explained to him that in the example of that, I explained to him, if I get you, I may also get your sister and your brother. And he was like, oh. I said, don't worry, you won't be in the same room. You'll have your own space. If you want to go and do something, you go do it. If you don't want to be around people at the time, that's understanding. People don't want to be around people all the time. That's completely understandable. And he was like, okay. That was it.
And so, do you feel that that it will be important, if Kamari is placed with you, to re-engage with the former therapist that you had the TBRI training with, to work on learning more and more to help deal with his potential behavioral issues?
Yes, and she also left me some electronic pamphlets, just keynotes on what to do, how to do it, and basically a summarization of what we talked about.
So based on what you've testified, and not knowing exactly when you would be moving, and not wanting to uproot Kamari needlessly, over and over again, having to go through a move, what would you specifically request the court to order with regard to Kamari, when Kamari would be placed with you?
I'm not sure if I'm remembering this correctly, but is he still needing the therapy?
So I had just asked you about the therapy involving his former therapist, and if you would be willing to re-engage with her. Since he's in another location, he's not engaging with that particular therapist. But if he were to move back to this area, would assume that he could work with Miss Mahali.
Most definitely. Somebody else familiar with, yes.
Okay. And would you follow the therapist's recommendations if she said, for example, he's going to need therapy until he's an adult, or even beyond that? Would you ensure that he receives the therapy that he needs?
Until I don't have any other legalization, I don't know how the adoption works. So I'm not sure if it's the same as when they turn a certain age. It's basically on them. But as long as I have him and he's with me, then yes.
Okay. So how important is it to follow the recommendations of his therapist?
I think it's extremely important. She knows more about these types of issues than I do, and I would be a fool to not listen.
In particular, about the genetic issues, if Kamari has a duplicate chromosome, as has been discussed, would you be able to ensure that he receives genetic counseling and you as well, so that you
Yes.
can address any potential issues with that?
Yes.
Okay. And you have health insurance through the state, is that correct?
Correct.
So Kamari could be on your health insurance plan and receive good health care with regard to the genetic counseling and any therapy he might need. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, with regard to your plans to move, I had asked when you would like Kamari to be placed in your care. Would it be as soon as you move into your new residence, or what do you think would be the best?
Objection leading.
I can rephrase, Your Honor.
Okay, that'll be good.
Thank you. Ms. Wheeler, specifically, what would you like the court to order in terms of placement change for Kamari, and when would you like that to occur?
Well, I'd again like to wait at least until I move. At least 1 week. I can get my stuff set up pretty quickly. If I had to, I could take some time off, which I probably will do. The first week that he's there, so that I have all the attention on him and I'm not having to I'm sorry, somebody walked in the room and I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so that I can concentrate on him for that 1 week and get him more acclimated and show him around and, you know, the ins and outs, what you can do, what we might not want to mess with, and things like that.
Now, with regard to Camilla and Deshawn, is your hope and your request from this court that they would be eventually placed in your care as well?
Yes, I was told by CPS that if this were to happen, that they would integrate them in different intervals so that we could all get acclimated to everybody being in the household.
So do you think that it would be in the best interest of the children, for example, for Kamari to be placed first and then eventually the other two? Is that your testimony?
I don't have a specific any specifics on who comes first. I'm not, you know, whether it's Kamari first or one of the other two first, I don't care, as long as I can get them.
And do you think that it might be important to maintain a relationship with Miss Trevor, since she has been a long-term placement for Camilla in particular? And do you feel that you would have any obstacles in keeping a relationship with her, or anything of that sort?
No, I don't see any obstacles. I had planned on having them still have a relationship with their father as long as it's supervised. I don't have a problem with the children seeing these people because these people have been in their lives. They love these people.
So with regard to Mr. Williams, as you just said, when you say supervised, you mean supervised by a professional, like at a facility?
Yes.
And is that due to your concerns of safety with Mr. Williams?
The concerns of safety and also of fleeing to Louisiana to his parents.
Okay. So you would not trust Mr. Williams alone with the children, is that fair to say?
No, definitely not. Definitely.
Right. And with regard to supervising your daughter, Miss White, if, for example, Kamari were to come back for an extended visit before he's placed with you, would you be able to supervise her at all times while Kamari is there in your home?
Yes, because I stay with Kamari the whole time anyway.
Okay. And with your job, you're able to work from home mostly, is that correct?
I work from home completely.
Okay, so you're home 24/7.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. And your husband, would he be able to assist you if necessary?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any concerns at all about your teenage son and how adjusting to young children in the home might be with him?
Not really. He tends to stay to himself He's a teenager. He comes in and out every now and again. Even him and Kamari, they give each other dap, and he'll go about his business, get what he's getting, and go back to his room. So no. As long as they're not placed in the same bedroom, which I would never do because that's too big of a age difference, they're fine.
So is that one of the reasons you're looking for a home with 5 bedrooms so that you have sufficient space?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Hagerty,
No questions for this witness, Judge.
Mr. McGivern,
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Ms. Wheeler, so I'd like to start first with the concern that the department expressed about your family finances. On that topic, I was curious if you could tell us briefly just a little bit more about what it is that you do for a living. So Ms. Wheeler, if I heard you correctly, your job with the Department of Health and
Health and Human Services Commission.
It had a different name until a few years ago. Involves determining eligibility for public benefits, correct?
Correct. Yes.
How long have you been employed there?
April, it'll be 7 years.
Okay. And since the department spoke with you and I guess developed its concern about your finances, has your income changed at all?
Yes, it has.
In what way?
We received a raise.
Okay. When was that?
I believe it was August of last year.
Okay. Switching gears to a different topic of the home study. There were concerns expressed yesterday that I would characterize as being in the realm of child proofing. And so let's go back to the metal siding that was discussed yesterday. Where exactly is that located on your property?
It's located all the way to the back of the property. I would say there's probably about maybe 20 feet. Well, no. So it's probably about 30 feet from the fence of the backyard to the actual backyard, and it's sitting all the way to the back.
And is it serving a function or is it being stored there?
I was storing it there because I was going to use it for gardening, but I don't think I'm going to end up using it. So I'm probably end up putting it to the side for bulk.
Bulk trash pickup?
Yes.
Okay. And there's some concern about cleaning supplies in your home. Do you have any concern about being able to baby proof those in the event that children are placed with you?
No.
There's also discussion about the fact that you own a firearm.
Yes.
Do you recognize
wow.
in this photograph?
Sorry, I just printed something. I had no idea it was going to be that loud. So sorry.
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is a picture of my gun box.
Okay. And there was some discussion about who had a key and whether or not it's a combination lock gun safe. I think it's clear here that can it be accessed through any means other than the combination?
No.
Okay.
Are you moving to admit this exhibit?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd ask to admit.
Any objections?
Your Honor, I would object just to notice we weren't provided this prior to the trial starting.
That's overruled. TW4 is admitted.
Ms. Wheeler, next I would like to show you what has been pre-marked as TW05. Do you recognize this photograph?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And if I'm seeing this correctly, it appears that in addition to being in a gun safe, that there is a trigger lock for the firearm. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And
I couldn't hear your answer, Miss Wheeler. Did you say right? What did you say?
Correct. Yes, yes, ma'am.
And if I understand those, it's not possible to fire or to use the firearm to discharge it without removing that trigger lock, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I don't see any ammunition stored in that box. Do you store ammunition in the box as well?
No, sir.
Okay. You store it separately.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask to admit, well, and the photograph we're looking at, is this a fair and accurate depiction of what we're seeing here? Ms. Wheeler?
I'm sorry.
Would you agree that this photograph is a fair and accurate depiction of what is in the photograph?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit TW05.
Any objections?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd object to lack of notice. We weren't provided this prior to the trial.
That's overruled. These are rebuttal exhibits and TW5 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Wheeler, what's your husband's name?
Justin Willis Wheeler.
Okay. And how long have you been married?
Almost 6 years.
What does he do for a living?
He is a cook at, I was saying that he has a daughter in a previous marriage and also a stepdaughter from the same previous marriage.
Okay. And how old are they?
Let's see. His daughter is, I think she just turned 12, and her sister is about 15.
Okay. And does he, in your mind, have the skills needed to care for younger children?
Yes.
Okay. Can you give me some examples?
He has also had some interaction with Kamari when my mother and all of us were staying together. I even have a picture of him laying on his pop while he's drinking his milk and they're watching TV. I would definitely know how to cook for them if they needed to. He's had to deal with my son and his asthma, so he has some experience.
Okay. And just so that I make sure I understand your testimony, when you're saying him laying on his pop-up, you're talking about Kamari and
Yes.
your husband, or
Yes.
being held by your husband. Understood. Has your mother, Miss Burdett, expressed that she'd be willing to support you if you're caring for the children?
Yes, she said she would help in any way that she could.
Okay. Shifting gears just a little bit with regard to the questioning before about Deja's presence in your household. With regard to, well, let me just ask, has she been a disruptive presence in your household?
No. Well, at the beginning, it was disruptive because her and Byron were going back and forth on the phone, arguing constantly. Once they stopped really speaking to each other, everything was peaceful.
How would you describe her demeanor towards you and your husband and your son?
As I had stated before, Deja was diagnosed as being defiant, so there is some defiance in her still to this day, but she has come a long way from the way that she was. I can actually sit down and have a conversation with her without having to yell at her to get my point across, or there's no physical contact since when she was 15 that I've had to do anything. If I say it, she does it.
So when you say no physical contact, she's not tried to harm anyone in the home
No.
And of course, I think she'll be 26 in April. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Speaking hypothetically, what would you do if she did try to harm someone in the household?
I would escort her from the house. Okay. Like I would literally kick her and her stuff out, if that's what it came to. I would prefer to push her to the side, take her outside, and speak with her and let her know your behavior is not okay. Maybe you need to go take a walk around the corner, and cool yourself off. But that kind of behavior is not necessary, and it won't be withstanding in my house.
So you mentioned Byron Williams. I'd like to shift gears to that briefly. You testified before that when speaking to CPS in the past, you had expressed the opinion that he was the more primary precipitating factor in these cases being filed. That was your view.
Yes.
Have you ever witnessed him threatening Deja?
I witnessed him while she was pregnant. He tried to run her over with the car in front of my house. And when he jumped back in the car, and I came in the house to obtain my weapon, and I took it out with me because I knew that he carries a weapon. So I took mine with me. So I wasn't brandishing anything, but I did have mine with me just in case.
Has he ever damaged any of your property?
Yes, he broke into my vehicle on New Year's Day.
Section relevance.
I kind of agree. Where are we going, Mr. McGivern?
Well, Your Honor, I think my understanding of the department's position was that Miss Wheeler, was somehow going to fail or would fail in a role as a caretaker because she misunderstood or was minimizing Miss White.
Well, I think we've covered that ground pretty well, so.
Okay. Understood.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I'll pass that.
Miss Anderson?
Yes, hi, Ms. Wheeler. I think, as you know, I'm echoing. Does anybody else hear that?
Yes, we all hear it. Let's just push through it, because if we
Okay.
don't finish this
All right.
today, I might have to, I don't know what.
You're asking for Camilla and Deshawn to come and live with you at this time? Is that correct?
Once I'm established in another home, yes.
Okay. And you've been looking for another home.
Yes.
And after you get your tax refund, that's when you will actually be able to really focus and look at that.
Correct.
Okay. Have you had any visits with Camilla and Deshawn in person?
Yes.
Okay. When was that?
I've had several visits. I don't remember the exact dates, but I have not had a visit with them this year yet.
So when was the last time did you have any visits on your own, or were you visiting with your daughter?
I was visiting with my daughter.
Okay. Would you remember when the last time was?
I believe it was in December.
Of 2022?
Before Christmas. Yes, before Christmas, I believe.
Okay. Did you ask for your own visits individually with Camilla and Deshawn?
No, I haven't asked for my own visits. Again, I wasn't aware that I was able to do that. I just went up there with her and took that part of my time out of requested from my job to have that hour to go up there.
Okay. And you said, you're planning on retiring at 65, is that correct?
No, ma'am. I plan on retiring from the state in the next 3 years.
Okay, I guess I read it in the psychosocial. So within the next 3 years, and when you retire, are you going to have health insurance vested?
Yes, that's why I'm waiting until I get to my tenure.
Have you had any contact directly with Ms. Trevor other than being on some of the video calls?
Other than I believe it was the previous visit that I had that we saw each other at, no.
Okay. All right, I pass the witness.
Thank you. So at this point, Ms. Wheeler, you would ask questions. I'm going to have Ms. Lozito go and then you finish. So Ms. Lozito.
Okay, you talked a little bit about Camilla and Deshawn in Ms. Anderson's testimony, but since Kamari's case has begun, approximately how many hours would you say you've spent with him?
There was the overnight visit. There was a visit before that. I believe he was there about 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours here with me. And then whatever visits that I visited with all the other children. I always make sure that I go when they're all there at the same time.
Okay. And I just want to clarify, because there's been a few different questions. It sounds like what you're asking for today is that the department remain in this case until you are able to get housing situated, in which then you would want the children to be staggered and placed with you. Is that correct?
Correct.
So are you asking for joint conservatorship with the department today?
If I guess so. I mean, I don't know what that means. Would that just me if I was to take one of the children now, then it would be a joint conservatorship?
If you're asking the department to remain in the case, you're asking to continue to work with the department, correct?
No problem with working with the department.
Your Honor, I'm going to make an objection. I just want to get a ruling on the record as to moving forward. Ms. Wheeler's initial pleadings we talked about previously were for joint conservatorship with her daughter. So I would object to moving forward on the grounds of seeking an alternative conservatorship, and I would just ask for your ruling on the record.
You don't need to worry about that because I'm not keeping CPS if Miss Wheeler is appointed a conservator. So we're all good.
Okay. Your daughter, you heard the testimony yesterday, correct?
From who?
From the department?
Yes.
And your daughter tested positive for THC and cocaine at the time of Deshawn's birth, correct?
That's what I was told, yes.
And you're aware that your daughter's failed to drug test since May of 2022, correct?
Yes.
And since that time, she's been living with you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. One other clarification I wanted to make is Kamari's previous therapist is in Travis County, correct?
I have no idea. I don't know who his therapist is.
Miss Mahaley, who you did the TBR training with, correct?
Okay, then yes. Yes.
And she's located in Travis County, correct?
Yes.
And you are looking at moving to Killeen, correct?
That was one of the possibilities, yes. I'm sorry. Basically, I'm trying to get to Travis County because my husband still needs to get to work. If I can't get in Travis County, then it would be possibly Bell County or a Harris County. It just depends on where we're able to get into. I don't have a problem with getting them where they need to go.
And are you able to take off from your current role if you need to get to therapy sessions throughout Travis County with Kamari?
As long as I have enough time to request the time, yes.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor. I'll pass the witness.
Thank you. So Miss Wheeler, you're not able to ask yourself questions. That would be weird and awkward. So we just call this narrative testimony, but I'm going to ask you to really keep it very specific to only things you really feel like you need me to hear and know. But this is you speaking on your own behalf, under oath, telling me the facts you think I need to hear.
Okay. There was a time that was stated before my TBRI training that I was asked how I would deal with Kamari and how he acts. Again, that was before my TBRI training. I didn't know, I didn't have that resource handed to me. I have that now. And again, we already talked about my raise. At the time of the what is that called? When the initial thing was done for the home visit, I did not have any children in my household that required me to have anything safety put in place. And again, I wasn't told, but I do have that now. I've already stated about being on the phone while Deja was talking to Althea, and Deja has explicitly said that she wanted them with me first, and if they couldn't get to me, then with her. I would absolutely have no problems with having them visiting again with Miss Althea and the other people that they've been pretty close with, because I don't see a reason with breaking that tie from them. I have spent time with special needs children before. This child had autism and was Down syndrome, so I do have a little bit of experience, but obviously not like the TBRI training just gave me. And I have no problem with getting more. As you know, I have experience raising children. Again, that was the long time ago when it was whatever happened between me and happened. So it's not the same now. And I do have plans for the future to do adoption classes and licensing. And that's about it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Carter, I'm going to ask you to keep it super short.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Wheeler, you had indicated that in your testimony that you would provide supervision if Deja were to be around Kamari or any of the children in the future if they were placed with you. How would you handle those supervised visits if Ms. White were to continue to incorporate physical discipline with her children?
I believe that was kind of covered with Mr. McGivern and what I would do if something got out of hand. It's pretty much the same answer.
And even though these are her biological children, you would still intercede?
Yes.
And you had indicated that you have visited with your with Miss White, visiting with all three of the children at the same time. How many times did you visit with the children over the pendency of these cases?
I don't remember, ma'am. It's been some years. Number one, my memory has never been the greatest, and to try to get every date that I've spent with them. Honestly,
Lean forward and talk again because we can't hear you.
I was just saying I can't be expected to remember exact dates or how many times that I've done this. It's on the log with CPS from when the times that I've signed in.
But you would agree with me that it was not weekly that you visited with the children?
Correct.
Would you agree with me that it was not even monthly that you visited with the children?
Correct. I visited when I could, yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Crouch Bartlett.
Thank
Same
you, Your
thing.
Honor.
It's got to be really short.
Super brief. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Ms. Wheeler, based on the questions that Ms. Lazito asked you about your daughter Deja White's drug use or drug testing, I have a couple of questions about drug use in your home. Do you ever allow Deja or anyone else to use illegal substances in your residence?
No, they're not even allowed to smoke cigarettes in my residence. My son has asthma.
And if you were aware that Ms. White was using illegal substances or appeared to be under the influence, what would you do?
She'd at least have to leave for that night or two until she can get herself back to normal or where she's not under the influence. But that might be a one-time thing. Again, if it were to happen again, then no, she would have to leave permanently.
Okay. And with regard to physical punishment, when is it appropriate to use physical punishment on a young child, in particular a child with special needs?
It's not. It's never.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Hagerty.
No questions, Judge.
Mr. McGivern,
No questions.
Ms. Anderson,
No questions.
Ms. Lazito,
No questions.
Ms. Wheeler, anything else you think you need to tell me?
No, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'm going to put you back in your slot over here where I've got you. And any other witnesses, Ms. Carter?
Your Honor, I have no further witnesses, but I would ask that you take judicial notice of the file in regards to the appointment of attorneys for the unknown father on 10/21/21 and subsequent diligent search report on 3/29/22. An appointment of attorney for Mr. Clark filed on 2/16/2022 and substitution on 4/1/2022.
You're going too fast for me. I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
So appointment, and I got my meeting at lunch gave me a giant migraine, so that's part of the problem. So appointment for the unknown father 10/21/21 and diligent search 3/29/22.
Correct.
Did I get that
And-
right?
Yes, Your Honor. And then the
Okay.
appointment for Mr. Clark, which was filed on 2/16, and then substitution on 4/1 with
Of which year?
of 2022, with a subsequent diligent search report filed on 4/20/2022.
Okay, and nobody found either of them, right?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Any objection to my taking judicial notice of those documents? I'm not hearing any objection, so I will do that. So that's done. Anything else from you, Ms. Porter?
The department rests and would like to do closing arguments at the end of everyone
All
else's rest.
Ms. Crouch Bartlett, do you have any other witnesses I need to hear from?
No, Your Honor, I do not. I would rest. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Hagerty.
No, Judge, I rest my case at this time. Thank
Same question, Mr. McGivern.
We're prepared to rest.
Ms. Anderson,
Intervener rests.
Ms. Wheeler,
I rest.
Ms. Lozito.
I rest as well, Your Honor.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much.